The chains around Day One's wrists were cold and heavy. Two guards dragged him through the dark tunnel, their clawed hands gripping his arms tight enough to bruise. He could hear the roar of the crowd above. Thousands of voices, all screaming for blood. His blood? The tunnel opened into blinding light. Day One squinted as his eyes adjusted. The arena stretched before him, massive and cruel. Black stone walls rose high on all sides, carved from the mountains of this prison world. Seats filled every level, packed with alien spectators. The Valtherians looked like insects standing upright, with their chitinous armor and multifaceted eyes. They chittered and clicked, excited for the show. The guards threw Day One forward. He stumbled but managed to stay on his feet. The sand beneath his boots was stained dark. How many had died here? How many humans? The thought made his stomach turn, but he pushed it down. Fear would not help him now. A platform floated down from above. On it stood Prince Vector, the crown prince of the Valtherian Empire. His armor gleamed purple and gold. His mandibles clicked in what Day One had learned was their version of a smile. The prince spoke, and his words boomed across the arena through translators embedded in the walls. "Behold the human," Prince Vector announced. "This creature claims to study life across the galaxy. It claims intelligence. But we know the truth. Humans are weak. Humans are fragile. Today, we prove this to all who watch." The crowd roared its approval. Day One stood still, his heart pounding. He was a xenobiologist, not a warrior. He had come to this sector of space to study alien ecosystems, to learn and document. Instead, his research ship had been captured. His crew was dead or scattered across Valtherian prisons. And now he was here, about to die for entertainment. "Release the Ravager," Prince Vector commanded. A massive gate groaned open on the far side of the arena. Day One turned to face it. His mouth went dry. From the darkness came a sound like grinding metal mixed with an animal's growl. Then he saw it. The creature was enormous. It moved on 6 legs, each ending in claws that could tear through steel. Its body was covered in scales that shifted from dark green to black. A long tail swept behind it, studded with bone spikes. The head was broad and flat, with eyes that glowed amber in the sunlight. Rows of teeth filled a mouth that could swallow a man whole. The Ravager emerged fully into the arena. The crowd fell silent for a moment, then erupted in cheers. This beast had killed hundreds. It was the arena's champion of death. Day One's training kicked in. He had studied predators on dozens of worlds. He knew behavior patterns, hunting strategies, body language. This creature was an apex predator from a death world. Everything about it screamed danger, but there was something else. Something in the way it moved. The Ravager did not charge. It walked forward slowly, its head lowered. The amber eyes were fixed on Day One. He could see intelligence there. Real intelligence, not just animal cunning. This was not a mindless killer. This was a thinking being. Prince Vector clicked his mandibles impatiently. "Kill, beast. Tear the human apart." The Ravager ignored him. It continued its slow approach. 30 meters, 20, 10. Day One's instincts screamed at him to run, but he forced himself to stand still. Running would trigger the chase response. Running meant death. Instead, Day One did something that felt insane. He slowly lowered himself to one knee. He kept his eyes down, not meeting the Ravager's gaze directly. Predators saw direct eye contact as a challenge. He made himself small, non-threatening. His hands remained open at his sides. The Ravager stopped 2 meters away. Its massive head tilted, studying him. Day One could smell it now, a scent like hot metal and earth. The creature's breathing was deep and steady. Not aggressive, curious. Seconds stretched into minutes. The crowd's cheering died down, replaced by confused murmuring. Prince Vector shouted commands, but the Ravager paid no attention. It leaned closer to Day One, nostrils flaring. Taking in his scent, Day One remained perfectly still. His muscles ached from holding the position, but he did not move. He breathed slowly and evenly. He thought of every peaceful moment he could remember. He projected calm. The Ravager made a sound. Not a growl. Something softer, almost questioning. Then, to the shock of everyone watching, the massive creature lowered itself to the ground. It sat beside Day One, its shoulder nearly touching him. The arena fell into stunned silence. Prince Victor's voice cracked through the speakers, rage making it shrill. "Attack! I command you to attack!" He grabbed a controller from one of his attendants and pressed buttons frantically. Day One saw electricity crackle along the collar around the Ravager's neck. The creature flinched but did not move. It sat beside him, enduring the pain. Day One felt something break inside him. He slowly raised one hand and placed it gently on the Ravager's scaled shoulder. "It's okay," he whispered. The words meant nothing to the creature, but his tone might. "You don't have to hurt anyone." The Ravager turned its massive head and looked at him. In those amber eyes, Day One saw recognition. Not of him specifically, but of something familiar. Kindness, perhaps? Or simply the absence of cruelty. The crowd erupted in chaos. Some Valtherians were clicking in outrage, others in confusion, a few in what might have been wonder. This had never happened before. The Ravager had never refused to kill. Prince Victor screamed orders. Guards rushed into the arena, their weapons raised. They approached carefully, clearly terrified of the Ravager. The creature's eyes tracked them, and a low growl built in its chest, warning them, protecting Day One. "Take the human back to his cell," Prince Victor commanded. "Now this demonstration is over." The guards grabbed Day One and hauled him to his feet. The Ravager stood as well, following them for a few steps. But more guards with electric prods forced it back toward the gate it had come from. The creature resisted, trying to reach Day One, but there were too many. Eventually, it was driven back into the darkness of the holding pens. Day One looked back as they dragged him away. The Ravager stood at the gate, watching him go. Their eyes met one last time before the guards shoved Day One into the tunnel. The crowd's noise followed him into the darkness. Arguments, debates, shock. They had come to see a human torn apart. Instead, they had witnessed something they could not explain. Back in his cell, alone in the dim light, Day One sat on the cold floor. His whole body was shaking now, the adrenaline finally hitting him. He had survived. Somehow, impossibly, he had survived. But he knew this was not over. Prince Victor had been humiliated in front of thousands. The prince would want revenge. He would want to prove that humans were weak, that this had been some kind of trick. There would be another execution, another trial, but something had changed. Day One had seen it in the Ravager's eyes. Two beings from different worlds, both prisoners, both forced to play roles in someone else's cruel game. They had recognized each other, not as human and beast, as something more. He touched his shoulder where the creature had sat beside him. He could still feel the warmth of its scales. Whatever came next, he would remember this moment. The moment when understanding triumphed over violence, even if only for a few minutes, even in a place designed for death. 3 days passed in the cell. 3 days of darkness and silence, broken only by the delivery of food through a slot in the door. Day One spent the time thinking, trying to understand what had happened in the arena. He replayed every moment in his mind. The way the Ravager had moved. The look in its eyes. The choice it had made. On the 4th day, the door opened. Day One expected guards, expected to be dragged to another execution. Instead, a lone Valtherian entered. This one was different. Smaller than the guards, with lighter armor that looked more like a lab coat than military gear. The compound eyes studied him with something that might have been curiosity rather than hatred. "My name is G1, the Valtherian said in surprisingly clear human speech. "I work in the arena's creature research division. I need to understand what happened." Day One sat up straighter. "Why would you care?" G1's mandibles clicked softly. "Because in 12 years of arena operations, nothing like this has ever occurred. The Ravager has killed 347 beings. Different species, different sizes, different behaviors. It has never refused. Until you. Maybe it was tired of killing," Day One said quietly. "Perhaps," Ji-Won moved closer, studying him the way Day One had studied countless species. But I think there is more. You did something. Something that reached it. I need to know what. Day One considered lying, but what was the point? I treated it with respect. I made myself non-threatening. I showed it I was not afraid in the way prey is afraid. I was calm, patient. I acknowledged its intelligence. Intelligence? Ji-Won's voice carried a note of surprise. It is a beast. A predator from a death world. Is it? Day One challenged. Have you ever tried to communicate with it? Or do you just torture it until it becomes the monster you want? Ji-Won was silent for a long moment. Then the Valtherian's shoulders sagged slightly. You are correct. We took the Ravager from its homeworld when it was young. We trained it through pain and hunger. We made it into a weapon. I have wondered sometimes if we broke something important in the process. You broke its spirit, Day One said. But not completely. I could see it in its eyes. There is still something real in there. Something that remembers what it was before you heard it. Show me, Ji-Won said suddenly. Show me you can do this again. What? I can take you to the holding pens? Tonight, when fewer guards are on duty? If you can truly connect with the Ravager, I need to see it. I need to understand. Day One's heart raced. This could be a trap. But there was something genuine in Ji-Won's voice. Curiosity that seemed real. Why are you helping me? Because I am tired of death, Ji-Won said simply. Because I became a biologist to understand life, not to facilitate murder. And because if a human can reach a creature we have tortured for years, then perhaps everything I have been told about your species is wrong. That night, Ji-Won returned with a guard's uniform. Too large for Day One, but it would pass a casual inspection. They moved through empty corridors. One security clearance opening doors that would have remained locked to anyone else. The holding pens were beneath the arena, carved deep into the mountain. The smell hit Day One first, a mixture of animal musk, blood, and fear. Cages lined the walls, each holding a different nightmare. Creatures from a dozen death worlds, all kept hungry and angry, ready to kill in the arena. At the end of the corridor was the largest cage. Inside, the Ravager lay on cold stone. Its eyes were closed, but Day One could see the rise and fall of its breathing. The collar around its neck blinked with small red lights. Control mechanisms. Pain mechanisms. Stay back, one warned. If it attacks through the bars, it won't. Day One approached the cage slowly. He knelt down as he had in the arena. Can you turn off the collar? Just for a few minutes? Ji-Won hesitated, then pulled out a small device. The red lights on the collar went dark. The Ravager's eyes opened immediately. Those amber eyes fixed on Day One, and the massive head lifted. Recognition flashed across its features. It stood and moved to the bars, but not aggressively. It pushed its snout through the gap, sniffing the air around Day One. Day One remained still, letting the creature investigate. After a moment, he slowly raised his hand. The Ravager's eyes tracked the movement but showed no fear or aggression. Day One placed his palm against the scaled snout. The Ravager made that same soft sound from the arena. Not a growl. Almost a purr. Incredible, breathed. I have never seen it behave this way. Because no one ever gave it a reason to, Day One said. He looked at the collar, at the scars beneath the scales where it had burned the creature's flesh repeatedly. This is wrong. All of this is wrong, I know. One's voice was heavy. But I am just one Valtherian. The Empire does not listen to scientists who question tradition. A door slammed somewhere in the corridor. Both of them froze. Heavy footsteps approached. Guards. We must go, one hissed, reactivating the collar. The Ravager flinched as the red lights came back on. Day One's chest tightened with guilt. I'm sorry, he whispered to the creature. I'll come back if I can. They hurried back through the corridors, barely making it to Day One's cell before the guard rotation changed. Ji-Won pushed him inside and closed the door, but not before speaking one last time. Prince Vector is planning another execution. In 2 days. this time with multiple beasts. He wants to prove you are weak, that what happened was chance. He will not allow mercy again. Then I'll have to survive again, Day One said, though his voice shook. The Ravager cannot protect you from 3 predators at once, even if it wanted to. Maybe not, but I have to try. Day One studied him through the narrow window. You are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both, Day One admitted. But I've spent my life studying how different species communicate, how they form bonds. If there's even a chance I can reach them the way I reached the Ravager, I have to take it. Why? Why risk your life for creatures that have killed so many? Because they're not killers by nature, Day One said. You made them that way. And maybe, just maybe, I can remind them of what they were before the pain, before the hunger, before they learned to hate. One was quiet for a long time. Then the Valtherian's mandibles clicked softly. I will help you however I can. But there may be little I can do against the prince's orders. Then just tell me about the other beasts. What species? What behaviors? Give me something to work with. For the next hour, G1 described the creatures that would be released into the arena. A pack hunter from the ice world of Krell, a solitary ambush predator from the jungle planet, Varys, each had been tortured into aggression. Trained to kill on command, when G1 finally left, Day One sat alone in the darkness. He thought about his crew, scattered or dead. He thought about the Ravager, trapped in its cage. He thought about all the beings forced to kill or be killed in the arena above, but he also thought about the moment when the Ravager had chosen to sit beside him instead of tearing him apart. That moment proved something important. Violence was not inevitable. Understanding was possible. Even here, in this place of death and cruelty, connection could happen. He closed his eyes and began to meditate, preparing himself for what would come. 2 days to live or die. 2 days to prove that humans were not weak. They were just strong in ways the Valtherians could not understand. The royal palace rose above the arena like a blade aimed at the sky. Inside its highest tower, Prince Victor paced before the massive windows overlooking his empire. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. 3 of his advisors stood at attention, none daring to speak. Explain it to me again, the prince demanded. Explain how a weak human made my champion beast refuse to fight. The headkeeper, an older Valtherian named Riekthar, shifted nervously. My prince, we have reviewed the footage dozens of times. The human used no technology, no weapons, no chemical interference. It simply stood still, and the Ravager chose not to attack. Chose? Victor spun on him. The beast does not choose? It obeys. That is what the collar is for. The collar causes pain, my prince. But it cannot force action. Only discourage inaction. Victor slammed a clawed hand against the window. The reinforced glass shuddered but held. My father expects a report. The entire court saw what happened. They are questioning our strength, questioning our control. Some are even suggesting the humans have abilities we do not understand. Perhaps they do, came a deep voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. Emperor Thekener entered the room, his armor darker and more elaborate than his son's. Where Victor was young and aggressive, the emperor was old and calculating. His compound eyes missed nothing. Father, Victor said, bowing his head slightly, I did not expect you. Clearly. The emperor moved to the window, gazing down at the arena far below. Tell me, my son, what do you know about humans? They are weak. Soft-bodied, short-lived, they have no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. They should not have survived long enough to develop space travel. And yet they did. The emperor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Do you know how many species the humans have made peace with? Species that were at war for centuries? Peace is weakness, Victor said automatically. Is it? The emperor turned to face him. Or is it a different kind of strength? One we have never needed to develop because we conquered through force alone? Victor's mandibles clicked in frustration. You think the human has some special power? I think we should find out. The emperor gestured to his guards. Bring the human to me. and bring one of his kind who speaks our language well. I wish to understand them better before we kill them." 20 minutes later, Day One stood in the throne room. His hands were still chained, but the guards had not beaten him. That was something. Beside him stood another human, a woman he recognized immediately. "So Young?" Day One's voice cracked with emotion. "You're alive?" So Young's eyes were tired, her face thin from months of poor rations, but she managed a small smile. "Barely. They kept me alive because I learned to speak Valtherian, made me translate for them." "Enough," the Emperor commanded. He sat on a throne that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of black crystal. Prince Victor stood at his right hand, radiating barely controlled rage. "Human called Day One, you performed the trick in my arena. I wish to know how." "It was not a trick," Day One said simply. "Then what was it?" Day One looked at So Young. "Can you translate exactly what I'm about to say? No additions, no softening?" She nodded. "I'll try." Day One took a breath and spoke directly to the Emperor. "The Ravager did not attack me because I treated it with respect, because I recognized it as an intelligent being instead of a tool, because I showed it kindness in a place where it has known only pain. You want to call it a trick because you cannot imagine that simple compassion could be powerful enough to change a creature you have spent years breaking." So Young translated, her voice steady. The Emperor's mandibles clicked slowly. "Compassion," the Emperor repeated. "You claim this creature understands such concepts?" "All intelligent beings understand kindness and cruelty," Day One said. "They may not have words for it, but they know the difference. The Ravager knows you heard it. It knows I did not. That is all it took." Prince Victor stepped forward. "Lies. The beast is an animal, nothing more. The human used some scent, some chemical trick we have not detected." "Then test me again," Day One said, surprising himself with his boldness. "But this time, let me try with the beasts before you send them to kill me. Let me show you what I mean." "Absolutely not," Victor snapped. "Father, you cannot." The Emperor raised a hand, silencing his son. His eyes studied Day One for a long moment. "You are either very brave or you have a death wish." "Very well. But not how you suggest. In one day you will face 3 beasts in the arena. If your compassion is real, prove it then. Survive, and I will consider that perhaps humans have some value. Fail, and you prove my son correct. And if I do survive?" Day One asked, "What then?" "Then we will discuss what it means," the Emperor said. "But I warn you, human. My son has chosen the 3 most dangerous creatures in our collection. The Ravager will be one of them, yes. But the others have killed far more, and far more viciously. Your kindness may not be enough?" "It will have to be," Day One said quietly. The guards dragged him and So Young back toward the cells. Once they were in the corridor, out of the Emperor's hearing, So Young gripped his arm. "Are you insane?" She hissed. 3 beasts? The Ravager might not attack you, but the others will tear you apart in seconds. Maybe, Day One admitted. But what choice do I have? Run? Hide? I'm in a prison on a planet controlled by the Valtherians. This is the only chance I have to prove humans are not what they think we are. We don't have to prove anything to them. Yes, we do. Day One stopped walking, forcing the guards to stop as well. "So Young, how many humans are in these prisons?" "How many died in the arena?" Her face fell. "Too many." "And how many more will?" "Die if we let the Valtherians keep thinking we're weak." "That we're just prey?" He looked at her with intensity. "I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing it for every human they've ever captured. For every human they might capture in the future. If I can show them we're different, that we have value beyond entertainment, maybe things change. Or maybe—" "You just die," So Young said, but her voice was softer now. "Then I die trying to make things better." "That's worth something." They reached the cell block. Before the guards separated them, So Young pulled a small object from her sleeve and pressed it into Day One's palm. "I shouldn't give you this." "It is a communicator. Short range. There is another human here, Taemin. Former soldier. He has been helping me survive. I will tell him about tomorrow. If there is anything he can do, he will try." The guards shoved Day One into his cell before he could respond. He looked at the communicator in his hand. It was small, barely larger than a coin. He pressed the activation button. A rough male voice crackled through. "So Young told me about you. The one who made the beast sit. I thought she was making up stories." "It's true," Day One said. "Then you are either the bravest human I have met or the stupidest." Taemin's voice carried a hint of humor. "Tomorrow is going to be bad. 3 beasts. The prince is making sure of it. He wants you ripped apart. I know I can't help you in the arena, but I can tell you this. The other prisoners, the ones who survived the arena, they are all talking about you, about what you did. For the first time in months, humans here have hope. Do not waste that. Do not throw your life away for nothing." "I won't," Day One promised. "I'll survive, somehow. You better. We need heroes. Even small ones." The communicator went dead. Day One hid it in his cell and lay down on the cold floor. Tomorrow would come whether he was ready or not. 3 beasts. 3 chances to prove that understanding was stronger than violence. He closed his eyes and thought of the Ravager. Somewhere beneath this building, that creature was waiting. Did it remember him? Would it help him again? He had to believe it would, because belief was all he had left. The arena was more crowded than before. Word had spread across the empire about the human who had made the Ravager refuse to kill. Some came to see if it would happen again. Others came hoping to watch Day One die. Either way, every seat was filled. Day One stood in the center of the sand, the morning sun already hot on his face. The chains had been removed from his wrists. They wanted him to be able to move, to run, to fight. They wanted a good show. High above, on the royal platform, Emperor Theckener sat with his son beside him. But Day One noticed something new. Other aliens filled the platform as well. Beings from species he did not recognize. Ambassadors, perhaps. Witnesses from across the galaxy. One in particular caught his attention. A tall, slender being with silver skin and multiple arms. This one wore robes that seemed to shift colors in the light. When it noticed Day One looking, it inclined its head slightly. Acknowledgement. Prince Victor's voice boomed across the arena. "Today we correct a mistake. Today we prove that human weakness cannot be hidden behind tricks. The human Day One will face 3 of our deadliest arena champions. He will have no weapons, no assistance, only his claimed compassion." The prince's mandibles clicked with cruel amusement. Let us see how far kindness takes him. The first gate opened. The Ravager emerged into the sunlight. It looked the same as before, massive and deadly. But its movements were different. Not the slow approach from last time. It moved quickly, purposefully, heading straight for Day One. Day One knelt down again, making himself small and non-threatening. The Ravager reached him in seconds and immediately positioned itself between Day One and the other 2 gates. A protective stance. The creature's amber eyes scanned the arena, and a deep rumble built in its chest. Warning. The crowd's chatter died down. Even the Emperor leaned forward slightly. The second gate opened. What emerged made Day One's breath catch. It was built low to the ground, with 8 legs and a body covered in white fur. The head was mostly mouth, filled with rows of transparent teeth. G1 had called this one a Krell ice hunter. Pack predator. Ambush killer. The ice hunter moved in quick jerking motions. Its attention fixed on Day One immediately. It began to circle, looking for an opening. The Ravager turned to track it, putting itself between the hunter and Day One. Day One spoke softly, more to calm himself than anything. "Easy, both of you, easy." The third gate opened. This creature was different again. Tall and thin, almost skeletal, with elongated limbs and a head that split into 3 parts. Each section had its own eyes. G1 had called this a Varus stalker, solitary hunter. Incredibly fast, the stalker moved like liquid shadow. One moment it was at the gate. The next it had crossed half the arena. It went straight for Day One, ignoring the Ravager completely. The Ravager roared and lunged. It caught the stalker mid-leap, 600 kilograms of scaled muscle slamming into the thin predator. They crashed into the sand in a tangle of limbs and teeth. The stalker screeched, a sound that made Day One's ears ring. The ice hunter saw its opening. It darted forward, going low under the Ravager's defenses. Straight at Day-1. Day-1 did not run. He dropped flat to the sand and spread his arms wide. Submissive posture. Prey that does not flee. The ice hunter's transparent teeth were centimeters from his throat when it stopped, confused. "I'm not going to run," Day One said quietly. "I'm not your enemy. Neither are you mine." The ice hunter's 8 legs danced nervously. It had been trained to chase, to kill things that ran. But this prey was not behaving correctly. It leaned closer, sniffing Day One with nostrils he could not see. Then it made a sound, high-pitched and questioning. Behind them, the Ravager was fighting the stalker. The stalker was faster, but the Ravager was stronger. They tore at each other, drawing blood. The crowd roared its approval. This was what they had come to see. Day One slowly sat up. The ice hunter backed away slightly but did not attack. "You don't want to do this," he said to it. "You're a pack hunter. You hunt with family. But they took your family away, didn't they? You're alone here." The ice hunter tilted its massive head. Did it understand the words? No, but tone carried meaning. Emotion transcended language. Day One reached out slowly. The ice hunter could have taken his hand off. Instead, it leaned forward and pressed its head into his palm. The white fur was surprisingly soft. The crowd's roar changed. Pitch, confusion, disbelief. The Ravager threw the stalker aside and limped back to Day One. It was bleeding from several wounds. The stalker rose as well, its 3-part head weaving as it tried to focus. Then it saw something that made it pause, the human. The Ravager. The ice hunter. All together. "Not fighting," Prince Victor's voice screamed across the arena. "Kill them. All of you, kill the human now." The stalker did not move. Its multiple eyes studied the scene. Calculating, it took a step forward. The Ravager's growl deepened in warning. But Day One held up a hand. "Wait," he called to the Ravager. To the ice hunter. To himself. "Wait." He stood slowly and faced the stalker. It was taller than him, its limbs designed for speed and striking. But Day One saw something in its posture, hesitation. This creature was smart. Smart enough to recognize that something unusual was happening. "You've killed before," Day One said to it. "They made you kill? But you don't have to anymore." "Not here." "Not now?" The stalker's head split wider, showing more teeth. A threat display. But it did not attack. Seconds passed. Then minutes. The arena was silent except for the wind. The stalker's head slowly closed. It lowered itself to the sand. Not quite sitting like the Ravager had, but no longer ready to strike. 3 predators. 1 human. No violence. The silver-skinned ambassador stood on the platform. Its voice carried across the arena, translated by the same system Prince Victor had used. "I invoke ancient law. The trial of recognition has occurred." Emperor Thekanar's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Ambassador Quindle, this is not..." "It is," the ambassador insisted. 3 species from different worlds. 3 apex predators trained for violence. Yet they choose cooperation over conflict in the presence of a 4th species. This is the definition of recognition. By galactic law, all parties must be acknowledged as intelligent and equal. "The beasts are property," Prince Victor shouted. "The beasts chose," Ambassador Quindle replied calmly. "Choice indicates intelligence. Intelligence demands rights? The law is clear, Emperor. You signed the recognition treaty 200 cycles ago. You are bound by it." The Emperor sat back in his throne. For a long moment, he was silent. Then his mandibles clicked in what might have been resignation, or perhaps respect. "Stop the execution," he commanded. "Clear the arena." Guards flooded in, but they approached carefully. The Ravager and the Ice Hunter both tensed, but Day One raised his hands. "It's okay. Let them take me. This is over." The Ravager made a low, mournful sound, but it did not attack as the guards led Day One away. The Stalker and Ice Hunter were herded back to their gates with electric prods. Only the Ravager resisted, trying to follow Day One. It took 10 guards to force it back. In the tunnel, Day One's legs finally gave out. He collapsed against the wall, shaking. He was alive. Impossibly, incredibly, he was alive. And he had proven something. He did not know exactly what yet, but something had changed. So Young found him there an hour later. She had tears in her eyes. They are arguing in the palace. The ambassadors say you must be freed. That all humans must be freed from the arenas. The recognition treaty applies to us now, and the Emperor? He agrees. But Prince Victor does not. There's a fight coming. A political one. Better than the alternative, Day One said weakly. You did it, So Young whispered. You actually did it. You showed them we are not weak. We were never weak, Day One replied. We just measure strength differently. Somewhere deep in the holding pens, the Ravager roared. Not in rage. In something else. Defiance, perhaps? Or triumph? Day One closed his eyes and listened to it. The sound of a creature that had remembered what it was before the pain, the sound of hope. The Galactic News Network spread the story within hours. Video footage from the arena went viral across 1,000 worlds. The human who had made 3 killing machines choose peace. The moment that changed everything. Day One watched the coverage from his cell on a small screen G1 had smuggled to him. He saw himself on the sand, saw the Ravager protecting him, saw the Ice Hunter pressing its head into his palm. It looked different from the outside. More dramatic. More heroic. He did not feel heroic. He felt exhausted. G-1 visited on the second day after the trial. The Valtherian scientist looked tired as well, but there was something new in the way she moved. Hope, maybe. The Emperor has ordered your release, G1 said, and the release of all human prisoners. The recognition treaty leaves him no choice. A human ship is coming to retrieve you. They will arrive in 3 days. Day One closed his eyes in relief. Thank you. For everything you did? I did very little, G1 said. You did the impossible part. She paused. There's something else. The Ravager. The Ice Hunter. The Stalker. Ambassador Quimdall has argued that the same law that frees you should free them. They chose cooperation. They showed intelligence. They should not remain property, and the Emperor agreed? Eventually, after much debate, the creatures will be examined by neutral xenobiologists. If they are deemed intelligent and capable of choice, they will be released. Possibly return to their home worlds. Day One felt something break inside him. Relief, yes, but also grief for all the time these creatures had spent in cages. What about the Ravager? Can I see it before I go? G1's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. That is against protocol. But then you broke many protocols already. Come, before someone stops us. They went to the holding pens one last time. The area was different now. Ambassadors and scientists from 12 species filled the corridors, examining the creatures, taking samples, debating in multiple languages. The arena's purpose was ending. What would replace it? Day One did not know. The Ravager's cage door stood open. The creature was awake, watching the activity around it with wary eyes. When it saw Day One, it stood immediately. But it did not leave the cage. Waiting for permission, Day One walked forward slowly. A human scientist standing nearby started to object, but J1 stopped her with a gesture. It's okay, Day One said softly to the Ravager. You can come out. You're free. The massive creature moved forward carefully, as if testing whether this was real. It emerged into the corridor and stood beside Day One, just as it had in the arena. Its scaled shoulder pressed against him. A woman in a white uniform approached. She was human, but her accent was unfamiliar. I am Minesio, veterinary specialist from the rescue ship. We have been monitoring the situation. With your permission, I would like to examine the Ravager. Ask it, not me, Day One said. It is not mine to give permission for. Minesio smiled slightly. Fair point. She addressed the Ravager directly, showing her empty hands. "May I look at your wounds? I want to help if you'll let me." The Ravager watched her for a long moment. Then it lowered its head slightly, acceptance. Over the next hour, Min SEO worked on the Ravager's injuries while Day One stayed close. The collar came off first, revealing burned flesh beneath. Min SEO applied medicine that made the creature flinch, but it did not pull away. Trust slowly building. "Its homeworld is a place called Karn 7, Min SEO said as she worked. "We have records of where the Valtherians took it from. If we can get diplomatic clearance, we can return it, but—" She looked at Day One meaningfully. "It seems attached to you." "I was kind to it once," Day One said. "That doesn't make it mine." "No," Min SEO agreed. "But it might make you responsible. At least until we know what it wants." 3 days later, the human ship descended to the prison world's landing pad. It was not military, Day One noted with relief. A research vessel, repurposed for rescue? The kind of ship he had worked on before his capture. Captain Yoon met them at the airlock. She was older, with gray in her hair and scars on her hands. A veteran of first contact missions. 37 humans rescued from this facility, she reported. All accounted for. Plus 3 non-human intelligences that have requested asylum with us. The ambassadors approved it. Day One knew which 3 she meant. The Ravager, the Ice Hunter, and the Stalker all stood in the cargo bay, sedated for transport. Min SEO's team monitored them carefully. So Young stood with him at the viewing window, watching the prison world fall away as the ship lifted off. Taemin stood nearby, still limping from old arena injuries, but alive. Alive. What now? So Young asked quietly. "Now we go home," Day One said. "We heal, we tell people what happened here, and them?" Taemin gestured to the cargo bay, to the creatures sleeping there. "We help them heal too. Then we let them choose what comes next." The jump to faster-than-light travel was smooth. The ship's systems hummed, and stars stretched into lines outside the windows. Day One should have felt relief. They were free. They were going home. But something felt unfinished. In the cargo bay, he found the Ravager awake. The sedation had not worked as well on it. The creature sat upright, looking around at the unfamiliar environment. When it saw Day One, it made that soft questioning sound. "I know," Day One said, sitting beside it. "Everything is different now. Scary, maybe, but better. I promise it's better." The Ravager leaned against him, its massive head resting on his shoulder. They sat together in silence, watching the stars blur past through the viewports. 2 beings from different worlds, both trying to understand what freedom meant. Captain Yoon appeared in the doorway. "You're not worried it might hurt you?" "It won't," Day One said simply. "How do you know?" "Because it already decided I'm not an enemy. That decision doesn't change just because the location does." Yoon studied them for a moment. "The galactic networks are calling it the Krath-9 recognition. Politicians are using it to argue for prison reforms across the Empire. Some are even calling for the arena system to be abolished entirely. Will it happen? Maybe. Change is slow. But what you did started something. Proved something important." She paused. "Prince Victor has disappeared from public view. Rumor says he is not happy about his father's decisions. There may be consequences to this that we haven't seen yet." "There are always consequences," Day One said. "Good and bad. But at least now, people know humans are not just prey. We're bridge builders. We can connect species that hate each other. That's worth something." "It's worth a lot," Yoon agreed. She left them alone. Day One sat with the Ravager for hours until exhaustion finally pulled him toward sleep. When he stood to leave, the Ravager followed. It walked with him through the corridors, ignoring the startled looks from crew members. It waited outside his assigned quarters until he invited it in. The room was small, but the Ravager managed to curl up on the floor beside the bunk, guarding, protecting, being there. Day One lay down and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow would bring debriefings, reports, questions about what had happened and how. The attention would be difficult, but tonight he could rest. Thank you, he said to the Ravager, for choosing to sit beside me instead of killing me, for showing them what you really are. The Ravager's amber eyes blinked slowly. Understanding, perhaps? Or just contentment at being somewhere safe for the first time in years, Day One's communicator buzzed. A message from Tay-Min that you changed everything? Not just for us? For them too. Sleep well, hero, he smiled slightly. Hero, he did not feel like one. Heroes in stories were strong and brave and always knew what to do. He had just been a scientist who refused to see another being as a monster. That should not be heroic. That should be normal, but maybe eventually it would be. Maybe what happened at Krath-9 would change how species saw each other across the galaxy. Maybe compassion would become normal instead of exceptional. Maybe humans could be remembered not for their weapons or their wars, but for their ability to look at something terrifying and see a person instead of a threat. The ship hummed around him, carrying them home, carrying them toward whatever future they would build together. Human and alien, hunter and prey, all of them choosing cooperation over violence. All of them proving that understanding was the greatest strength of all. Day One closed his eyes and slept. And for the first time in months, he did not dream of arenas or death. He dreamed of open skies and freedom. He dreamed of a future where no one was forced to kill to survive. He dreamed of peace.